when I was 14 and I first got a guitar, I slept with my guitar. I took it everywhere.
Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of the Who Cares Anyway podcast. My guest on this episode is Barbara Manning, and I could say that given her distinguished recording career both as a solo artist and with 28th Day, World of Pooh, San Francisco Seals, Barbara Manning and the Go Luckies, and others, I could say that she needs no introduction, but I should at least give some introduction for this interview. And in doing that, I'll begin by acknowledging that while she does feature in the book, most prominently in the chapter on World of Pooh, but also in a couple of later chapters, you could certainly make the case that there's more to be said about Barbara Manning and her music, even in this particular era. I certainly second-guessed that, so it was with that in mind that I was very, not just grateful, but actually relieved to hear from her this summer that she had actually read the book and seemed to like it, and so we had kind of a further exchange at that point. And then I also noticed that she had been out touring and performing more this summer than in recent years. Now, obviously, there are reasons why in certain recent years people wouldn't be out performing so much, but in her case in particular, there was a sort of maybe semi-retirement that's kind of hinted at in an earlier interview that I'll link to as I refer back to it from 2015 or so, where it sounded like that phase of her career maybe had ended. But again, the happy ending here is that she has been out performing more and will be doing more dates on the East Coast this fall, November, opening for Codeine. And I'll link to those dates in the show notes. But anyway, with all that in mind, I thought, why not see if she would be willing to appear as a guest? And so this is a sort of follow-up to the interview we did back in 2016 for the book. One thing we didn't talk about in 2016, because I don't think this recording had come out, but that would be the Chico Daze era. Chico Daze, D-A-Z-E, a compilation or collection that is up on Bandcamp that I think includes recordings she did with a few different bands while she was in Chico in the 2000s, maybe into the early 2010s, while she was going back to school and sort of reorienting after taking a sabbatical, one might say, from doing music full time. But anyway, we talk about that and sort of some of the challenges involved in life after full-time music making and all of that. And so, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the interview with the one and only Barbara Manning.
Funny to be the straight person amongst the freaks. I really enjoy the fact that I get an opportunity to be that person. But honestly, the it wasn't very popular to be the singer-songwriter in the art groups. And I think in some ways the people who were working with me gave me more credibility because, like, for instance, having Melanie Claren on the drums, just she's so great and everyone loves her, and she's in so many other bands, and so she comes with so much credibility of her own, and if she's giving me the time of day with her time, then it makes me sound better. Or Brentley Pusser from 3 Days Stubble, having him on lead guitar, that just made me better. So yeah, I guess those were my friends, and so made sense that I ended up playing with them, and that helped me do the singer-songwriter thing rather than making up a persona.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any, reactions. I'm not trying to make this into a book report, but if you had any reactions about, acting, not acting, channeling.
Mhm. Or being authentic while not being authentic.
Yes, all those things.
I think that it was helpful for me to read it because it put some things into perspective, because usually I would be looking back at those times from as I'm in the center of it. And in this book, I'm not the center. And it also highlighted things that maybe I wasn't aware of at the time. But I can give you some points that I mean, moments that I was really connecting with it was the very day that I moved to San Francisco, I had $50.50. And I was coming from Chico. But it was definitely a time when I would have been at a soup kitchen, no problem. Like that would have been, I was young and adventuresome, and I just thought I'm not afraid of being poor there, etc., etc. And that very day, I met a friend of a friend, and they took me to a cool house where I ended up meeting some other people. But I remember everyone was talking about the last show of Trial was happening that night. So it would have been in 86. And I didn't know who they were talking about at all. And I didn't know the Sleepers, and I didn't know about the farm yet. And and all of that I got shown. But it was just kind of neat to start your book that way, because that's how I started San Francisco, learning about them first. But I didn't like hang out with them or anything. I just ended up being aware of that scene going on. It's so funny to think about the times when you first move there and you just want to jump into a scene, but you don't know where it is. You know what I mean? And then later, of course, it was so different. Like everyone knew how to find me.
I was reading a different interview from maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, a very thorough one that looked like a written questionnaire. But it mentioned that it asked about the worst times, and one of them you said was
Mm,
1985, and I'm guessing that was the tail end of Chico and the breakup of 28th Day. Is that
hmm Yeah, I think I was really thinking about the breakdowns of, yeah, the things that when you feel like the rug is pulled out from under you, or whatever your reality is ends. So that was hard because I was young, 19, 20 or whatever it was. Oh wait, I guess I was 20, but I still didn't have the wherewithal to make any money, or knew how to even be a person in society, because I wasn't really raised the normal way. Like my mom is very antisocial and lived in far in the woods, and definitely raised me and my sister with some beliefs that we had to rearrange and think about again when we were older. So when I was 19, 20, I was not ready to survive yet. I didn't know how to survive. I just knew I wanted to play music. That was all I cared about, really. And then when I think about it, how did I become an adult? It's like it feels like it took a really long time to become an adult for me. And now I'm an adult for sure.
so you arrived there and I don't know how much that reputation preceded you or how much, not at
Mhm.
all.
No, I would say I didn't have a reputation except, being a bad punk rock girl or something, but you're getting into trouble. But I didn't have any reputation until after 28th Day, because I mean, I'd never done anything that anyone would have really known or heard about. But 28th Day is my first thing to have been, to get some notoriety from, for sure. We were really popular amongst our own age group, mostly underage kids that um, didn't really have any other outlet. And it was super fun. For a while there, it was very poppy and power poppy, which I just adore. And then we got a little more into Sonic Youth and things like that. So our songwriting got a little more complicated. But by the time we were working on those songs, we broke up. So we didn't do the second album that we were talking about doing.
Okay. So I was thinking this might be a little bit of a stretch then, but I was thinking about someone, I don't know, like Alex Chilton or somebody who has,
Mhm.
whether it was the Box Tops or then Big Star, and he seemed like he was constantly not outrunning his past, but trying to like wrestling with the expectations that people had of him. And I just remember, I mean, there was that newspaper article that Brandon sent me, and I think I quoted from it. It was like your homecoming, the way the newspaper billed it up in, I guess, Chico, and you
Chico,
all
yeah,
played.
they hated us.
And it was that really bad review. And that could
Yeah, it
have been,
was.
but then I've seen similar things later on when just looking at people writing about it, your music, they'd say, wish she was doing music more like this. And it's not always 28th Day, it might be some other later stage. And
Mhm.
but I didn't know, like I'm still not actually clear on like how much that followed you apart from that homecoming show, or if you had people coming up to you and saying, why aren't you still doing this? Or in the 90s, why aren't you still doing scissors or something? I don't know.
Like Robin Hitchcock did that. Like he came to see me play, but I was playing with World of Pooh, and he did not care for World of Pooh, and he said, "You should go solo." That's what he said. I was like, "Well, this is what I'm doing right now." I think I think that it's kind of normal for people to kind of own something they love. And it's like I love Van Gogh, let's put it that way. It's like I feel like I own Starry Night, but I don't own it. But in my world, I own it. And I see it every time I see that image. I feel familiar with it. It's mine. I know it so well. I've stared at it a lot, but I can't change it. I can't like tell Van Gogh, okay, well, I think you should try a version in pink or something. Look, that's not possible. And so I think it's normal for people to get really attached to a sound that pleases them, but they just can't hold somebody back in their art. I can give you a good example of where I've felt like I've done that, where I went to see Sufjan Stevens, oh gosh, a long time ago now, maybe 12 or so years ago, maybe longer, because it was before I knew my husband. But I went to see him in Oakland, and when I went, it was very disco. It was, I guess, his period of discoality. And I was so disappointed, and I wanted him to do what I wanted him to do, you know? Same exact situation. But you just have to let them do what they're doing. And then recently I heard something by him and I went, "Oh, when is that record coming out?" And I already bought it in advance, because he's now doing, he's in a mode of doing quiet, thoughtful, more focused things. And that sounds like something I'd enjoy, I think. Not that I don't like disco, but
Yeah, I remember reading in that interview about how the Bee Gees were a first sort of
yeah.
portal into
Mhm. It was
popular culture.
something I liked that my mom didn't like. Something I liked that my sister and I both really liked. And I was really fascinated by their early albums of Bee Gees' first album, which is called Bee Gees First. It's a great record, and there's so many songs on there that I've thought about covering. I'm gonna eventually probably do something like that, some Bee Gees song from that album. They're really good. They're really strange lyrics, and they're beautiful and strange.
If ever you've got rain in your heart, someone has hurt you and torn you apart. Am I unwise to open up your eyes to love me and let it be like they said it would be?
So one thing I don't think I talked so much about with you was Lowdown Studios and Greg Freeman. What comes to mind when you think about Lowdown Studio, either in terms of visuals or
Oh my,
just memories?
so many things. Uh, I remember first time going there, it was it wasn't very pretty because Greg had allowed a lot of bands to draw all over the walls. And so it just had that really just Sharpie graffiti mess. Not even gorgeous graffiti, it was just bad graffiti. It was just looked trashy and terrible. But as he but I mean, who cares though, right? Once you're there, it doesn't matter. He made a lot out of a little, or he made a little out of, no, yeah, he made a lot with little. He didn't have that much at the when I first went in there. But as we would use him, because we had Matador, Three Thinking Fellers, and myself, and well, I don't know about the other bands, but I was able to pay him, you know, maybe a little more generously than he would ask for normally. And I would also cater it, make sure he is taken care of, And so he was able to, not just from me, but from other people like that, having a budget. Let's just put it that way. You had a budget. He was able to buy more material, more rack stuff, and more toys. And then he did this really nice renovation where he rebuilt the sound room and the control room, and it looked a lot better. It just looked nicer. It was like classier looking, and it kind of started feeling in that way like it was our kind of our, not a clubhouse, but definitely something that we felt, it was like a very much attached to. That's where I wanted to record. And occasionally Brandon would find another place for us to record, and we would try it out. uh, and we put a couple things out on, like a couple tracks or something that were done at the Army Street Studios or something, like some other place, but it just didn't feel the same. And Greg is, I kind of feel like he could be anywhere to record. He's got this amazing ear, incredible taste in music, and a really good ear for things. One of the things that we always disagreed upon is how loud my vocal should be. And I think that might just have been the style of the times, but a lot of times I wish I could understand my lyrics a little better. Maybe it's just because I'm losing my hearing, but like I kind of think the vocals could be a little louder because of what the kind of speakers they get played through or whatever. Vocals are so important. Not to be a diva about it, but it's the melody and the words and the story. But there was something about being an indie rocker too. It's okay to be in the mix with somewhere.
I have a friend who I just, casually play music with or occasionally record. And we have there's this kind of thing where I will be, even though I listen to a lot of instrumental music, when the lyrics are there, they're really important. And like, I don't like them to be arbitrary, and I don't like them to just be sloppy or just insert a cliche. And he'll say, it's more about the sound. I think that comes from a lot of, I listen to him too, but Husker Du or stuff like that, where it's more buried and you can only really hear these fragments. But I feel like, I think I'm siding with you here that, when the lyrics are part of it, yeah, they should, like, they matter. And I think you talked about that in, I didn't quote this portion of it, but in our interview from 2016, you talked about how over time you came to sort of, I don't know if you said, you didn't call it a revelation necessarily, but it was like you came to some sort of realization about how important that was. And that certainly,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
I think in 2014, I think is when it happened. Yeah, it's like a cathartic moment about how you have to deliver your lyrics and how you have to give live. You have to give, like, it can't just be sung. You have to sing it like it's coming to you right now. And that was a big change for me, definitely. And now that's how I do it.
Yeah, and I'm scrolling back through it here. I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to read something that you said here.
I think I was a real amateur when I was a 28th day, and I don't think I was a good performer. I think I wasn't thinking audience back then at all. And later, as World of Pooh started with me, that was my next band, I was not I don't think I understood the audience thing either then. Did we generate a great persona for the crowd? No, I don't think so. I don't think I was trying to do that. But I think it came later with the SF Seals, where I started to realize that I'm getting these really big crowds of people who are really into the songs. Let's make those songs as alive as possible. Make them as fresh as possible. And I really, really enjoyed playing live at that point. Like, I really got into playing live. I think it was a big change in learning how to sing, too, because I don't think I sang that well before. And as I got more into it and started, like, listening to people I loved and understanding what really resonated with me, was realizing that you have to pronounce the words like you're saying them for the first time. You just have to. And timing is important with your singing. It's not just putting out the words within a certain chunk of time. It's like every syllable should be hanging on a note.
Well, I quoted you for 3 minutes and then asked you to say something, and I don't know what I expect you to
I think
say.
I just remember, like, I like the fact that I was talking about it as in with the SF Seals, because I do remember having some weird revelations during that period too, because there was this time when I played at the Khyber Pass in Philadelphia, and we were opening for a pretty well-known loud grungy band that really didn't have anything to do with us. And I was having a pretty bad day, and I was very moody, I'm sure. So I remember at that show that I decided I'm not going to give anything to the audience. And so I just sang and I played, but I didn't get it in my eyes or my face. And I didn't turn to the band and smile at them. And I didn't tap my foot around or get my hair all wet with sweat. I just remember just not giving. And somebody said, that's the best show they'd ever seen of me. And I thought, that is such a great slap in the face right now, because I should never not give. If I'm up on the stage, I need to give. That's what performing is. And if people are going to take the time to come, they need to see that. Now, I was thinking, Will, that you were going to say that it isn't really a very true statement what I said about singing, because there's so many styles of singing, and you wouldn't want to take that away from, let's say, something like airy and quiet and lilting and soft and almost mesmerizing and or gentle or whatever. So yeah, there's all sorts of styles of singing. For me though, I know that I have to do it. I have to, like, that's just my favorite kind of music is kind of that it's urgent. Something that's like kind of gives you that push, like you feel like you really do want to open that beer and chug it down, or you really do feel excited about something that you could pogo, like that's my favorite music, even though I like other things too. But if I'm going to make music, most of the time I want it to have energy in it.
Yeah, that whole portion, one of the really challenging things is I was trying to, whittle this thing down to a mere, the mere doorstop that it is, was how much interesting stuff I had to cut. But I thought that the whole section where we were talking about think audience, you brought that idea of think audience, and I
want a sign that just says that.
But so I said, so my kind of counterpoint, which you had a good response to, and I won't make this whole thing a replay of it, but I said that I was talking about how I often liked these experiences of being kind of baffled by a band where, they weren't pandering and you kind of have to figure out what they're doing. And I mentioned the Frogs the first time I saw them. And your counterpoint was, but do you still not think that they're thinking audience, and that it's just another way of thinking audience? And you're still giving something out, it's still projecting something or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a very weird, wonderful, but totally weird video on YouTube of me playing with a bunch of people from Edinburgh, Scotland, who are they're in the noise and the experimental music scene, and they agreed to play with me, and I'm playing as Glands of External Secretion without Seymour Glass. But I have a 6-piece band. There's like six of us. And I thought audience very much throughout it. But I also was freaking them out too. Like one of the things I did was I went the venue was in an art gallery, and you could see all these, like it looked towards these windows that went out to the street. And so I went outside and looked through the windows at my audience. And then I took out these colored pencils and started drawing on my face through the window. They can see it, but not everyone can see it. And it's not like even clear that the show has started, but I'm staring right at these people doing it. And then I take out my microphone and I start singing this thing over and over. And then I start going up to people in the street, and they're running. So there's an audience behind the window in the art gallery, but I'm out in the street almost going to get arrested. So I better get back in the art gallery. but it was fun for me because I knew I was thinking audience, and how do I make this even more dimensional? How do I make it even more like they're not expecting that? And it was so fun. But it's available on YouTube. Really, it's like out there for the whole public to see. And there I am, not acting quite like Barbara Manning.
Was that from just this summer?
But yeah, it's like if you look up Glands of External Secretion and Edinburgh, that's probably where you would find it. But it might be under Fruit Market Gallery too. I'm not sure. But it's very fun. It's only 25 minutes long. And the guys I was playing with, they're so wonderful. And there were so many brilliant people in that group. Very fun. So I don't know why I told you that.
Well,
I guess
the think audience thing.
I think
and
audience, yeah,
yeah.
that you can do it even when it's weird music, or if it's, I mean, completely. This drummer, Han Bennett, when he's playing, he gets off of his drums and runs around the drums, but he's still playing the drums. And I'm sure maybe that's not the only person who's ever done that, but I was amazed by it. I was so amazed by it. But he's definitely thinking audience, blowing us away, really. I guess every single drum solo is always thinking audience, isn't it? That's why they're doing it.
Maybe or even if they're only just thinking about the other drummers in the audience. But I think that that idea of think audience is, if I think back to, I mean, I was in Chapel Hill in the late 90s. So I was there a little after the real heyday. But there was a certain thing in those days, and maybe it still counts as thinking audience, but being kind of blasé or not give it, being cool and in a sense. I'm not putting that on Chapel Hill in particular, but
No,
but
it's kind of indie rock in a way to
yeah,
not make a big deal out of what you're doing,
right,
to dress the same as the audience,
yeah,
and
or
to
dress the same as you were dressed earlier that day. And I don't know, did you become aware that puts you at odds with any sort of prevailing feeling in the air, or
I kind of feel like I was similar in the sense that I didn't really have that I didn't have really that revelation until later. I feel like it came after touring a lot, because I started touring all the time. I was touring with the Go Luckies so often. It was great for quite a few years. But during the times I was in San Francisco, during the times of your book, your fine book, which I love, and I think that I like the title too, even though I think lots of people care.
Oh yeah, I think that's
Because you
what it really
can't have
comes back
that
to.
time again. You can never make it. It won't happen again. It's not possible to live there and have that experience again. But I think that it was really hard to do the music that I was doing at the time. And I was not loved as much for my music as the Thinking Fellers were, for being so outside and taking so many risks and doing things that people are not expecting. People really revere them even more so now, I feel, and that's much deserved. I wouldn't take it away from them, but it, for me, going to the house parties and hanging out with my pals, I knew my place in the sense that I've always been very, very proud of my music. Like, it's just, you can tell me that it's not good, but I think it's awesome. But it may not be the thing that is what people respect. And that is probably why I really wasn't in the scene with Turkington or ever. I didn't never wanted to be in Carolina. I never wanted to be.
You're the only person who wasn't. Yeah.
I would drive Brooks around. I mean, we were pals at first, but I didn't mind seeing them. I saw them many times. I enjoyed them and I enjoyed the nuttiness of it, but yeah, it's not what I want to do. I I feel like the things that I have to do are literally like they're like in the air and inside my body, and somehow those two things meet and then it comes out, and then I'm really pleased that it's there, those songs. But I just
Yeah.
don't think it's something that I'm preconceiving so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is, it, like you said, it isn't a persona. It isn't got a complicated backstory, and it isn't trying to confuse people. Oh, like for instance, the World of Pooh record that got reissued, the spine is something else. And so it's just, I told Brandon, no, no, don't do that. It's just gonna get lost. And he goes, exactly. That, so that kind of attitude, that wasn't the way I was looking at it. But was I ambitious? No. I wasn't very ambitious. And I kind of did resent the ambition that I saw. Like, let's just say well, better not just say, but some other musicians that were around me in the scene definitely wanted to get famous. And that was just something that was like, yeah, forget it. That's, I'm glad that it didn't go further than it did. It's perfect.
When you went back, because I've been listening to the Chico Daze thing, and I gathered that it was sort of after you had been in Germany and done a lot of traveling, you kind of made the decision to go back to school in Chico. And how long were you there, and what was that time like?
Oh, yeah. It was, I'm trying to think of exactly what year, 2002, I think.
Okay.
Well, actually, that's when I went to Chico. I was in, for 1 year before that, like the 2001 semester, I think it was. And then 2000, yeah, that would have been right. So I came back from Germany and I was living with my mom on her land, and she has a school bus, and I had this teeny, teeny little trailer. Like, it's really just like a bed on wheels. But it was a room, and so I lived in there and I would play my guitar, and I wrote a lot of songs during that time that came out for Go Lucky's record called You Should Know By Now. And pretty much most of those songs were written in that trailer. Because then I went back to school at the time, and I went to community college. I thought I wanted to be a forester. Actually, really was interested in being a dendrologist, which would be the study of tree diseases. And I got really far in my quest. I even got as far as the year that I graduated in 06. I got a job as a ranger, but it was like a G3 or something really low on the scale. And what I discovered was that it was more like a policeman or something, or person that would write tickets, or for sure it was somebody that was doing samples of trees so that you could figure out when you could clear cut them. Things like that were just, yeah, it was just beyond what I wanted. I mean, it wasn't what I wanted. And the reason why I took biology though was because I went to the music department to find out, hey, I'm ready and I'd like to take the recording arts. I've been putting out records for years now. And they're like, well, you're gonna have to wait 5 years because there's a waiting list to get into our recording department. And I thought, I don't have those 5 years. So let me walk around and think about it. And I was walking around and I saw, people coming out of the chemistry department in their lab coats. And I just thought, that's what I want right there, wearing a lab coat. So I got my wish many years later. Wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I basically picked something I don't know anything about and had to start really, really at the bottom. And I'm absolutely glad I learned all about it because I love knowing. I love knowing it. And then I don't know if I've already told you about this before, but I was having a real hard time with school, like teaching, staying employed. And I went through this really another bad school, like just brought me down. The admin was the worst. And I mean, I love the kids and the teachers, but I did not like the people in charge. And I was just feeling really low. And so I decided to take some time off. And then I decided, well, I'm not going to just take time off. I'm going to learn something. So I was able to earn a credential in physics, but you had to take it for an entire year with no breaks. So I did, and I earned it. And then I figured that I would be teaching older kids now instead of biology, which is 9th grade, and they all hate it.
Yeah.
And they changed the thing in California. Now 9th grade is physics. Crazy. But that same time I got hired for drama and theater, which was, I also have a credential in. And so it was just a surprise. I wasn't expecting ever to be able to teach that. In LA, where there's a million actors, probably have credentials. It's just been amazing. And then this year I also was given a new class. It's the guitar class. And it's so fun. I love it so much. And to be in a room full of like 40 kids that want to play guitar so much. Like I always start with, okay, everyone, you can make some noise, go. And they all like strum, 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 strum. It's so great. But they're gonna be learning. They're gonna know stuff. And they're always begging, play for us. I'm like, not yet. Not yet.
Well, that's good news. Yeah, because those years when I was teaching in high school were it was a small private school in the Sunset, but it was kind of like a lot of them were there because they had gotten kicked out of other schools, and
I see.
it just felt like
A magnet for science, huh?
well, it was like neither one of it was like this thing where, okay, I'm in there and I'm not feeling like I'm equipped to do the kind of job that I'd like to do, and they don't really want to be there, and we're all kind of like at some level aware that this is not working or serving us, and at the same time I don't have to reinvent education on the fly. It was not something within my abilities as much as like I know that the system that we have has so many flaws, and it's this factory type system. So like trying to find something within that will pay the bills and that you don't hate is like really hard. So I'm happy to hear that you've gotten.
Oh, so I mean it can change too, all in next year. So
Right.
I've been through up and down with teaching. It's just been heartbreaking. But I think maybe because of that, like I'm on my 8th year now, I feel like I really know how to appreciate what I've got. Like I really do enjoy it. And very much because the subject matter is right up my alley. Like drama and theater. Oh, I am exactly perfect for that. And also I really make a big, like I dress much more flamboyantly than normal. And I am really outgoing with the students. Like I go out into the lunch area and I'm looking around for the weirdos, and this kid zooms by me in a cape, and I'm like, that's the weirdo I've been looking for. I find him, and I go to him and I go, you are the bravest kid here. And he has the biggest smile, and I give him a flyer. I'm like, join the drama club, get involved in our show. And he did. He was in one of our plays, and his family told me how it was really meaningful to him to be involved. And he was a natural. He was so funny. And the only sad thing is he was a senior, so I lost him already, But oh my goodness, I think that's what I'm supposed to do, is go out and find the broken artists and give them encouragement and show them they can be themselves. And that's what it feels like in the guitar class too, because it is packed. It is packed. There's hard to find another space. Those kids are eager. There's not one kid that's not there. Wait, they're all there, but I mean, there's not. Wait, how did I say it? Got all mixed.
I think I know
They're
what you're
all
saying.
very enthusiastic.
A lot of times they're there physically, but
Yeah.
not otherwise. And
So far, what I see in that guitar class is an eagerness I have never experienced before, and it's just delightful. It's really great. It's just adorable. Makes me so happy, and I know that feeling. When I was 14 and I first got a guitar, I slept with my guitar. I took it everywhere. I took it everywhere. I couldn't be without it, and I don't feel that way anymore. Oh, it's so nice
But-
to see teenagers feel enthusiastic about music.
yeah, and slight turn back. The music that was recorded on the Chico Daze, I was looking
Yeah.
up on Discogs and trying to figure out. It seems like those were a few different bands that were maybe short-lived, and you recorded some stuff.
Completely. It's very
and-
piecemeal, and I can tell you that maybe that was like probably the worst time for me, was living that period in Chico, because it just felt like I was not succeeding. The only thing I could succeed in was my job. Like I was the DJ for KCHO, and I had also a show on KVMR. No, not KVMR, excuse me, KZFR. And those were the best things, and a couple of friends that I had. But outside of that, really, I just could not keep a band together. I couldn't keep a relationship together, and I, I'd lose a cat. Like it was so hard. It was so lonely during that time, and being a student at the age I was in was difficult, because nobody really wanted to be around me, and yeah, I hate being ignored.
I was an old graduate student, especially by the end of it, so I could relate somewhat. But you were, I mean, musically, it doesn't come across as, it's not like bleak music. There are a couple of songs, the first song, and then also what Better by Bounds. I actually had to look up the credits, because like, are those covers? I thought they could have been covers of like some lost classic country songs, because they have this, there's a very timeless feeling to them that it's the kind of song that as a listener sounds like it was effortless to write, regardless of whether it was or not. But it doesn't sound like somebody was laboring over this chord change or how long to make this part. It's just kind of like it came out. So I guess what I'm trying to connect back to is that at the same time, I can only imagine what it would have been like. You're there, you're still making music of that caliber, but it's completely
Ignored,
180,
and nobody cares.
right?
And I
There's
could
no,
barely record it. Yeah. Yeah. I remember at the time, Mac from Superchunk called me. I was really surprised to hear from him, but also I was really thrilled that he would think of me. And he invited me to put a song on the Merge. I don't remember what it's called, but it was people doing covers of things that were on Merge. And I knew exactly what song I wanted to do instantly. Like I wasn't like, oh, I have to think about the song. I knew I wanted to do Through with People, which is a Porter Static song. That's the way you say his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's it.
And I was thinking Portishead, and I'm like, nope, that's not the same. I love that song, and I have for years. And so it was weird. Like as soon as he asked me, I knew I wanted to do that song, but I just couldn't record it. I'm like, how do I record it? He's like, well, just get it. There's no money in it. Just record it. And I was like, Mac, I have nothing. I don't even have a computer. Like I have to go to my work to use a computer. And so he said, okay, here's, I'm going to send you $100. And I gave the $100 to the guy who recorded it in his living room. And he also played drums on it and got his nephew or somebody of his relative to play absolutely amazing guitar on it. And it was really lucky because it came out magical. I think it really came out well. But that was a surprise. And I was really desperate in those days. Like just, yeah. Just hard. It was really definitely one of the most difficult times I've ever lived. It was during those times, making very little money, working radio and trying to go to school. And yeah, it was hard.
This is not the kind of question I usually ask, but what do you think of as high points from that period in between San Francisco and back in Chico when you were sort of nomadic?
When I was living when I got to live in Germany.
Okay, yeah.
Like, oh, it was just amazing. Wow. I flew to Germany on one of those cargo planes that's like $500. And I landed in the middle of Germany in a place called Darmstadt, where I have a friend, and she had a little daughter. So I started off sort of just taking care of her daughter, which is my goddaughter actually. And not for pay, but I would live with them. But again, this situation of, I just always get this sense of, am I holding my own? Like, am I contributing to, I always feel kind of guilty if I'm not contributing money to something. Sometimes just work isn't enough, but I ended up doing some music in the south of Germany. And then I met the twins, which are the members of the Go Luckies. They're twin brothers, half German and half Italian, Flavio and Fabrizio. And that, it doesn't take much to rejuvenate my musical bones, but all I need is somebody who wants to do it with me and is excited about it, and we get along. And then there you go, I'm ready. And then I start writing, and it sort of woke me up, and I wrote a whole bunch of stuff for the Go Luckies. We were always putting something out, and we were touring all the time, just so fun. It got to a point where we were regulars at places. So we would always play Christmas in Berlin, in East Berlin, at this place called the Wild at Heart. And they would have us every year at Christmas. And then on New Year's, I would play in Munich, and they would bill me as just Barbara and the Go Luckies, because it was so normal. Like I would just play there so often. And I loved it so much. There was a guy who was following us around. He was going to make a movie, but but then when he found out that I had no money to give him to make the movie, he sort of lost interest. But he, that was a time when I was playing very well. Like it was really tight. We would play for 2 hours, and we'd always be adding new things. So it felt like a very well-disciplined musician for a while there. I was really proud of that. But then I just had another one of those revelations that I am living off of them. Like I started feeling like, wow, I'm living with the twins and their parents whom I love. I love them like parents, but I'm living off of them. It just, wow, it was like a shock when I realized it. They didn't tell me, but I felt it. And so that was when I said, I've got to go back and go back to school and go back to, yeah, I've got to do something because I can't keep music going. And when I'm seeing things that I didn't expect to be way, way more popular than me, like there's countless of bands that I could just drop their names, but it would be so mean. But lots of bands where I'm just like, they got super popular? Like, really? Wow, okay. All right. People are missing out. But I kind of came to peace with it. I don't know. I still feel pretty comfortable with my anonymity. I like to say this. I can go almost everywhere and I'll find one really true fan. And sometimes I'll find 100, but not many more than that. So I really can't say that I'm still very, very unknown, but in a great way, really great way.
I know it was probably at no point a full-time, like fully able to live off the music.
Oh, it was during the Matador days. That's what I did. I lived off the
Okay.
music. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was making great music. I mean, great money, music too, and I was able to pay everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like any tour I went on during the Matador days, the people who went on tour with me would have the month they were gone, their rent paid. Plus they'd have a per diem, and plus they'd get, the profits split. And yeah,
Okay.
and like going to New Zealand, I paid for John and Joey to go. Once again, taking care of their bills and their rent. Um, and I had money, money to spare. It was a fun time because I don't know if it's just because I'm a Sagittarius or not. I don't know. Because I think it's one of the traits of the sign, but I really am bad with money and I love spending it on other people. So I'm kind of like, if I have the money, I'm like, let's do it. you know? So, and that was those days. And that was the thing I thought I was going to get, 50,000 a year just from music, which only lasted a couple of years. But then it really made a real spiral drop. And when I couldn't get on Merge, that was a real blow because I thought that would be my next place. That would be, Merge is full of my friends. But nope, no. And then, just sort of all these things had to kind of slowly take their effect in my brain and go, oh, that's not where I belong, huh? That's not that's not my stature anymore, or that's not who I am, I guess. But the songs never really, they were always had to just come out. It just didn't matter if there's an audience for them or not.
I'm just sort of trying to put myself in that position of like, yeah, you're this is your thing, and then how humbling it was, but that you did keep, you persevered, you were still recording music, and it seems like that you've reemerged. I mean, was this time going over to Scotland the first time that you've toured in some time?
Yeah, it pretty much, yeah. Like this year has been sort of funny that way, where I played Chicago, Minneapolis, 2 London shows, Sheffield and Manchester in England, Edinburgh, Inverness, and Glasgow. And I'm going to play the East Coast with Codeine in November. So I get to do Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and Boston and New York. And that's in November. If you were to look at any of my other date books that I keep every year, there hasn't been, I'll play once a year for somebody who wants me and they'll pay me to fly out. But usually that's it. And it's just been magical. I love it. I'm so happy because I know it doesn't last. And um, it really mattered a lot to have people tell me, and I know, Will, you must understand this, that, with your book, it's like, you got to like let them tell you how good it is and how great it makes them feel. Because that's what I was experiencing on the road just now, is people telling me really important. It was really important for them to tell me it, that how much it mattered. And of course it mattered to me that they told me that I mattered, right? But wow, it's, the depth of how they feel about it is hard to realize. That's like, it was sort of like, wow, this can't be true. It can't be about me, but it really matters to some people. And that's what I got out of that tour, is that even if I don't tour again, or something, God forbid, happens to me tomorrow, wow, I got that experience. I got that experience where people hadn't seen me in 20 years or 30 years, and they've been listening to me the whole time. And it matters that they got to tell me. Wow.
Yeah, it's almost too bad that you couldn't like take out a loan during the Chico days and say,
Mhm.
because I again keep referring back to these interviews, and I was trying to find it, but it was, yeah, you had, this was maybe 2015. You had said when they asked if you were still playing music, you said no, that not having enough time to do a good job. And then you said, I thought this was poignant. It said, the work seems overwhelming. Instead, I quietly play weird covers on our back porch and tell myself I did enough records for one person.
Mm.
But like very bittersweet in the sense of the path that you have sort of traced out, and it seemed like there was some regret, but a sort of zen as well. But things have changed since then, and so that's good.
Well, I don't know if anything's changed except that I got these opportunities that I'm taking, because I don't think that, I mean, I don't want to not see something for what it is, but it was just sort of a break, like a lucky break. For instance, in England, somebody really wanted me to play solo there. So he paid my way to go over.
Okay.
And then I was able to get all these other shows. And then the coding thing, I think, is they remembered a good time with me 30 years ago when we took a train. Coding and I were on we had the same booking agent, or just agent or something. Somebody was working with the two of us and put us on the same bill, and we had never met, but we got on a train and we had like the amazing time talking, and we were friends ever since. And Chris Brokaw is somebody that I've kept in contact with throughout the years, just because he's always trying to still be a musician. And I mean, he is always a musician, but he's trying to make money at it. And so he's in lots and lots of different musical outfits that are great, that I've collected over the years. So I've kept up with him in a bit. And then I think that it was just, they remembered that I was out there and I hadn't played in a long time. So when he contacted me, I actually said, "Hey, Chris, this is Barbara Manning. I think you might have sent this to the wrong person," because he's saying, "Hey, do you want to go on a tour with us for, 4 days?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do want to, and I'm sure you sent this to the wrong person." And he's like, "No, we want you, Barb." So
That'll be November.
yeah, November.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's a lucky break. And those two shows, those two tours, had nothing to do with each other at all. And They could have happened in 2 different years or something, but it just happens to be the same year. And then the Chicago and the Minneapolis shows have to do a lot with a friend that passed away a few years ago that I was wanting to honor, um, his the day he died. I wanted to play a show and have his friends come, and then from there, I got an opportunity to play in Minneapolis with one of his relatives. And it's just a coincidence that it's the same year. Now, if it could keep going, I'd be so happy. I do wanna, kind of stir the pot myself a bit. I wanna go to Scandinavia. I was, in contact with somebody from Scandinavia that said that they would love to have me there. So that's something that I wanna work on. And it's the same with the England shows. I had 1 show booked for me, and the rest fell in my lap. Like, as soon as it was known I was coming, I got shows offered, and so it's amazing. It's just amazing. So, I just can't imagine it's gonna keep going like that, though.
I don't have a grand closing question, but I was thinking about how, in a sense, I mythologize San Francisco. And I've talked with other people about, some people would have that feeling about Japan. And
Mm.
I could be wrong, but for you, a couple of those places, one might have been New Zealand, and then the other one could have been the UK because of rough trade.
Mm.
Yeah, what was it like? What was it like to actually finally go to a place or experience, say, with New Zealand? Because I know that you had been listening to a lot of those musicians for a long time, and then you're playing with them.
Mm. Yeah.
And then same thing with Young Marble Giants, and
Mm.
was it a pinching yourself kind of feeling, or was it? How do you compare the if there was mythologizing with the actual experience?
I can remember very well playing with, in New Zealand, in Dunedin. I had John and Joey from Clexico. They weren't Clexico yet, but those guys, playing behind me as a rhythm section, and then me on a guitar. We had already toured, and so we were pretty copacetic together. But I wanted to have David Kilgore, one of my most favorite musicians, from the Clean, and I wanted Graham Downs, another one of my most favorite bands from the Verlaines, in the same band. They, as far as I know, they never played together, even though they're from the same town. And so at one point, I've got one of them on one side of me and one of them on the other. And it was like I would have pinched myself, but my hands were wrapped around a guitar. But I remember just looking at one side and turning around, looking at the other, and going, I am so lucky. I can hardly stand it. So special. I think a lot of times you have to, this can sound so cliche-ish, but you have to make things happen that you want to happen. You have to really get that ball rolling first, and you have to do a lot of work. But a lot of times, once you get into that groove, things just fall into place. They just happen. They open up for you. And that's, even when I've been just so down and out, I knew that the cycle's going to change. Things turn around. They get better. But they get worse too, which I'm afraid of.
Thank the Lord, now our love is better by bounds. You and I have had a hard time of it. We fight so long to make romance fit, holding back all the harm that knock each one down. Thank the Lord. shelter.